Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Themes and Things. With this week, we're rounding off our Blade trilogy, the final one. Now, Merlin, I have two questions for you. First of all, did you leave a like on this video? And second, do you like when movies suddenly change the denominations when numbering sequels? Like, I'll tell you where I'm coming from on this. So I feel that if you make your sequel 2, then you have to stick with that. Otherwise, it's just confusing.
My first answer is yes, I did like this video because I am a gentleman, and that's what gentlemen do. The second thing, if you're gonna call your second one 2, you could go for 3, but you could also go for Shrek the Third or John Wick Parabellum. In this case,
I see
a
what you
little
mean.
Blade Trinity, a little 3.
It's just in this particular case, I don't know. I don't want to get stuck on this either, but yeah, it just feels a little bit stupid. What do you think the Trinity represents, though?
The Trinity. The Trinity is the Ryan, the Switch, and the wardrobe. Hey, it's
The Ryan, the Switch, and the wardrobe. All right, I think I can get this. So Ryan Reynolds for being young Ryan Reynolds, the Switch for the Whistler Switch, and the wardrobe because everyone looks badass.
And that's what Blade represents in this little trio, is being well dressed.
Most definitely, as is evident in this movie, because this film is mostly concerned with the daywalker walking around in the day in super slow-mo, so we get to take in all that genius, outfitting genius.
Costuming genius, even for everyone up until our villain. Hey, it's stylish, and then the villain.
But we'll get to that in a second. I do want to talk about his clothes a little bit. But this is also the first time we get our Marvel intro, back when it was just comic books flipping. Just giving you that overall impression that this is not your grandpappy's Blade. This is for the kids.
This is new Marvel, This is modern Marvel, And there's a lot of that. It reads like that in a lot of different ways. We've come a far way from that 1998 blood sprinkler club scene. It's not that anymore.
No, it's most definitely not. It's all shiny and new, and it's still pretty violent, but the violence is toned down a lot, and there's still some cursing in it, but it's also few and far between. Actually, I want to talk about the production about this movie for a little bit, because it was quite troubled. You might not know this, but Wesley Snipes was a producer on Trinity. That's what I'm calling it now, Trinity. But he was very upset about the script. So a lot of the scenes, they had to use stand-ins because he straight up refused to shoot scenes. The reason why Blade has yellow eyes in this movie is because they had to CGI put it in, because he refused to open his eyes in some scenes. Which is actually, if you ask me, pretty good, because you don't notice that. Like, when I heard that, I was like, I didn't even notice that at all.
What a diva, though. I'm not going to open my eyes in some scenes. What are you talking about?
Yeah, dead serious. He was quite childish about it, actually. But yeah, so it's a quicker turnaround time, because between the first one and the second one there was 3 years. But the contract for this was actually signed in 2001 with the release of Blade 1. New Line Cinema made a deal with David S. Goyer to immediately go forth into the third one. And they couldn't find a director for the longest time. I think that's also why this movie feels a little bit directionless. Because at times, like, you can see they tried some things and there's lots of plot lines, but overall,
it's as you say, it's directionless. The characters don't feel right. It's action figure silly. All those fun things. It makes sense now. It blew my mind.
A little bit, right? Let's talk about the characters for a little bit, because this time we do have another team, but this time it was trained in secret for Blade instead of to fight him, which is always fun. But it just feels it feels like it was just we can't just have Blade, so we need more people, and we'll just throw them in. We'll say they're here, and that's it.
And that is quite contrary to what Blade was in Blade 1. Hey, how loner.
Are you referring to his blood magic doctor friend?
How he distanced everyone around him and everything like that. I guess they do have to, like, beat through his tough exterior to get to the Gucci center or whatever. He doesn't go, oh, here are some friends for me. He's quite condescending to them and quite. He feels like I do. He doesn't really need them. So kind of spoke my mind in the movie. Although that being
It's true,
that
actually. He doesn't really need
yeah,
them.
that being said, Blade teaming up with Detective Pikachu, really good. I would watch that.
You're just a big Ryan
I'm
Reynolds fan and you can't hide it. But I do like that as well. Having a proper comedic relief character this time around, I think does save this movie. We've talked about it off air a little bit, but Ryan Reynolds does most of the heavy
Oh,
lifting
very
here.
much. He does. It's most of what I like about this movie is Ryan Reynolds. The story. Oh dear, shame. I'm gonna.
Let's talk about that. What do you think the
Uh,
story was?
I sit and I'm. The longer I think about it, the angrier I get that they didn't do Blade uh, versus humans in some way. Like they were setting up that the humans are coming after Blade. They're gonna hunt him down and everything like that. And then the showdown is with Dracula. All right, what a snooze.
I agree with you. It's a little bit like I felt what got me about that is in the first one he fights an essential god, and in this one pitting him against the avatar for that god just doesn't feel like a
Like
trilogy ending conflict.
honestly, Dracula in formidability is ranked in my mind lower than Dragonetti, and he wasn't even the proper villain for the first one. He's even lower than Damaskinos. He's lower than a Reaper. He gets like bottom spot for this entire franchise's villains. Eh? Even Deacon Frost, God help us, even Deacon Frost was more interesting.
You're not wrong, but I personally don't like a villain that doesn't want to be there. Like, I feel a villain needs more motivation than the hero. Because heroes are archetypical. They're going to do the good thing. They're going to save the girl in the situation, and they're going to get the MacGuffin in the end, or whatever the case may be. But in this one, he doesn't want to be there, and he dresses accordingly.
It dressed. Honestly, it seems like he was heading for a male scent, perfume like shoot or something in that vein, and just stumbled upon the set. Okay, um, he,
It's like, oh, I'm not just. Someone gave him a sandwich in the script, and he was like, "Don't worry, it's not much to read. Just look into the camera and walk slowly. That's about all we need."
oh dear, no. This villain was really boring. Hey, I don't know how you make Dracula
It was
boring.
really
Hey,
boring.
and this is like my sixth favorite Dracula. And if before you ask, yes, um, Hotel Transylvania's Dracula is ranked above him. Just saying. I'm just saying.
That's a hard call, but I believe it. But is he 6 on the list because you only had 5 other
Yes,
examples?
exactly. If you remind me of more Draculas, he'll drop. The score will drop.
He is pretty intense. I like that actor though. I used to watch Prison Break as a kid. I don't think he's the best actor in the world, but I think it does feel like a very phoned in performance. But apart from Ryan Reynolds, they all feel a little bit phoned in. Jessica Biel's character, for instance, no one really gave any thought to that. I want to talk about the opening scene where we meet her for the first time. So her grand plan is to kid herself, buys a completely new outfit, builds that baby, and then kills like 14 vampires with it. Now, for vampire hunters that have no money, this feels like an exceptional waste. And they don't even take the gear with them.
I was so proud of myself in that shot because there was an old lady with a baby and a bunch of teenagers coming like, oh yeah, old lady. And I called it. I'm like, no, that is the badass. That's a badass good chick. That's what she's gonna do. She's gonna badass good chick all over the place. I hear you though. The internal logic on this movie is rough. Eh? Like,
Yeah, very. It does honestly feel like they didn't think about it farther than just we need a few guys to look cool. We need someone to be ripped, and then there's an end fight scene, and that's about all we're gonna do. All of it looks good though.
Yeah.
Like it does look good. I think it holds up, special effects wise. Everything looks pretty solid.
Everything looks good, including Ryan Reynolds. I'm just saying.
Maybe especially
wait
Ryan
for
Reynolds.
it.
This movie does go a little bit. It was thirst trappy before there were thirst traps. Like you like young Ryan Reynolds off the back of Waiting. Well, here's some more Ryan Reynolds. Here's Ryan Reynolds in some chains without his shirt. Here's Ryan Reynolds talking about his butthole for 15 minutes.
Oh yes, we get a little monologue where he references first his left butt cheek and then his right butt cheek. You know, Oscar-winning stuff. You know, brilliant, right? But
Some might say,
he sells it, man. He sells it in a Ryan Reynolds way. They just cast him as Ryan Reynolds, as they continue to just cast him as Ryan Reynolds. It's just charismatic.
that's kind of true. They do kind of. He is very charismatic. I actually wanted to ask you about that because we get another intro narration at the start of this movie, but this time round it's Mr. Ryan himself. How do you feel about intro narrations now?
I'm
After
perfectly
this one.
fine with Deadpool doing a intro narration. I'm just saying. I said it before. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And Ryan Reynolds giving an intro narration, always a win. I'm just saying.
It's true. There is something jovial in his voice that makes it work. I also didn't hate it, even though I do hate expedition dumps at the start of a movie. I think it's a little bit lazy. Not that Blade is egregious, like Blade 2's intro narration isn't necessarily, here's the plot, here's what we're going to do, but it doesn't have the same,
You know,
it doesn't have the same comedic timing
you know how I
as
feel
this
about
one
that
does.
exposition and the reason for that exposition being in that movie. Which brings us to Whistlers.
Indeed, multiple I noticed you used there.
I must say, like, Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel, filling out Blade's like little troop, not too bad. Them killing Whistler again. That's rough. That's so rough.
It is rough, and they do it quick, right? It's like in the beginning, it's like pff, Whistler's dead. That's it, and he doesn't even get a final word or speech. He doesn't get a death monologue, dying in the arms. Nothing. It's
My
just
second
dead.
favorite Whistler death. I'm just saying.
But your first favorite Whistler introduction, I imagine, then as well.
No, my first favorite is for when Dracula disguises himself as Whistler. I guess that's the best. That's the most interesting Whistlers back from the date that this trilogy has offered. If I had a dime for every time Whistler died and came back, I would have 2 dimes, which isn't a lot, but still it's weird that it happens twice.
Yep, and it is a lot considering there was only 3 movies, and this is in fact not a soap opera. But yeah, killing Whistler off in the beginning might have been a little bit of a risky move.
It was
But
beautiful.
Chris
It
Christopherson,
was beautiful.
yeah, it was.
Bringing him back.
It just takes away so much from this death in Blade 1. No, sorry for interrupting you. I think it takes, because that kind of gets lost in the void.
Oh, I
now.
see what you. No, Blade 1's Whistler death is beautiful. This one is trash. No, I'm on the same page as you. I'm getting it. Okay. This one was rough, man. Rough.
It was rough. It's a difficult film to get through. Even when I was a kid, the first time I saw it, I was like, nah, bro, this is not the Blade I remember.
That's hilarious because it was marketed to your demographic. Like it was targeted to your demographic. That's it.
It does feel that way. It does feel like we're going to sell some toys off the back of this, because they all have outfits constantly. And you actually mentioned this as well, and I think you're right in saying that they change a lot of Blade's things like quickly. He doesn't get a down and out scene. He drinks no blood in this one. His serum is no longer given by needle. It's an inhaler now, which is, a lot more kid friendly.
As they get that weird super laser bow. That has to be a toy. Right?
Oh, don't even start with me with that laser bow. I hate that weapon. I hate that weapon so much. It's the most impractical thing in the world. I hate it when they do stuff like that as well. Like, I don't mind the bullets as much. Like, you can trap sunlight in a bullet, I guess. Whatever. This vampire world, that's fine. But a bow weapon that is as hot as the sun that you can walk around with, it's just... No, man. That's like very early comic book movies. It's like they saw that in a comic book and they went, do this. We'll do this. This looks cool. We can put this as an add-on for the
If you,
figurines.
you could put it for an add-on. It's a lot. It sounds a lot better than garlic. I'm just saying.
Definitely, that's also a thing that they completely ignore in this movie. I don't think they mentioned it once, and no one uses it as a weapon. We can assume maybe the garlic is used as a weapon in the baby for that air that it sprays out. But later in the movie, when Ryan Reynolds is caged up, they use silver nitrate in the air ducts. So it's probably
Although
that.
garlic is a lot cheaper. Like the war,
A lot
yeah, the
cheaper.
war on vampires becomes a little less impressive if any, kitchen a person in a kitchen has a probability of winning a fight with a vampire. Like if you could use something you find in your kitchen, it gets a little bit goofy. It gets a little bit more Scooby Doo than Marvel.
What do you mean exactly?
Like a vampire being allergic to garlic. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit more Scooby Doo
Oh, yeah, I hear what you say. It
than
is,
it is Marvel.
yeah, it
Where
is.
a giant laser bow is a little bit more, modern Marvel. We've gotten better at displaying tech. Do you remember how crazy Iron Man 1 was when you were a kid? Like what they did in that one. But we're not yet to speak about
Uh,
Iron Man.
no,
I'm just saying, like that bow is a little bit more in line with modern Marvel. Um, the,
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it does sell. It's shiny and clean and has a good image and is, modern and out of this world. And it does represent that, I guess, to a certain degree. It goes hand in hand with the bullets and stuff that they use. But just all of it falls a little bit flat, I think, because again, the plot and the bad guy. Let's talk about Mr. Dracula himself. So, as we said, very boring. The deepest V you'll ever see.
truly. And if you asked me, mismatched like what Blade usually is about. He just comes in and he just like a emo kid, like an anime character. You said that he didn't want to be there, and I can just like in my head imagine these like mopey anime characters just moping on set, and that's how he came off. He wasn't formidable. And this is actually crazy because he shapeshifted into Whistler, and I was like, oh damn, that's evil, and then killed a helpless blind lady, and still I'm not scared of him. I,
Yeah, no, yeah, that's very. You're never scared of him. Like Deacon wasn't necessarily
yes,
scary, but he was like
yeah,
unpredictable. You're not sure what this guy's gonna do, and the Reaper is scary for obvious reasons. Like half of your weapons don't work
yeah.
anymore. But yeah, with this one, there's no like, ooh, what's Blade gonna do? He's gonna stab him. That's what's gonna
I
happen.
like that. That's hilarious. You mentioned something about there in the notes that there's no club scene this time. That they
Yeah, I was actually quite refreshed about this. There was no club scene this time round. Again, because probably the
yeah
kiddie image that they're going for, like trying to sell it to teens. You can't have them having a clubs. Because the clubs prior to this was, as you said, the blood one. And then the one and number two is also, it's not as gruesome, I think, or as visually gruesome as the first one, like that initial, the bloodbath scene. But the second one is still like, it's rough.
yeah
There's vampires feeding and there's cutting each other open and things like that. But they stay away from stuff like that in this one almost entirely. You don't see a single safe house. You don't, except for the blood
yeah.
farm. Which I also want to talk about a little bit. They should have made that girl a boy, and Blade should have shot her in the head. You know, the one that he leaves alive.
Oh, you're really mad about that.
I'm really mad about it. But Blade as a character, I like the fact that he's so dead set in these ways. Like, for him, there's no differentiating between familiars and vampires. Same evil has to be dealt with the same way. In the beginning, when he's caught by the police, he says he has killed something like 1,000 people. Are you telling me all 1,000 of those people were men? Is that... You understand what I'm saying? There's no female familiars, which fits into the Blade 1 world again, because that Blade 1 world is... It can be anyone,
Yeah,
anywhere.
and it's kind of a thing that I've noticed with this one is that the surreal feeling. I talked about the first one, how they combined different surreal feeling things like nightlife, like New York in the 90s, Afro surrealism, and a bunch of other things. But it feels like that all those strangeness, all that otherworldliness has been scrubbed clean, and everything has kind of been simplified. We're coming back to that PG-13 thing. Back to that. That's why he didn't kill the lady in the blood farm. But
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree with you. There is that, but I mean, all right, it would have. I think it just would have helped the
yeah,
movie age a little bit better. But I can also understand why at the time they felt like, if we can't do this, you didn't really have what we have today. Where like modern action movies today have female henchmen and things like that. You didn't see stuff like that back then, so it kind of makes sense given the time. Talking about the time though, this is definitely post Spider-Man, and that's what you feel. That's where all this comes from. The Because Spider-Man obviously did very well, far exceeding anything Marvel's done before. So it does feel like they went, let's. So this Blade was like kind of its own, was R-rated movie. It was towards people, and then it got the Spider-Man overhaul, and then we got this movie. But it just ended up being, I don't know, a little bit too formulaic. Like they needed a bad guy, so they got one. And they didn't care what he does or what he says. They needed a catalyst event, so they did kill the people and hang that lady from the roof. But all of it feels still a little bit lacking in. Yeah, but why is anyone like, why is Blade hanging around? He can just leave.
yeah,
He can do this on his own. You can just leave them. They're not really helping him at all.
and miss out on Ryan Reynolds' wisecracking humor. I would have stayed.
Okay, yeah, you maybe not. You'll stay for that. I
I
would.
would.
You would. Let's talk about the overall plot and what we both think would have been a better
Okay.
movie.
My pitch for this movie would have, or for the trilogy, because I don't necessarily just want to fix this one. I want to fix the last one as well. Is to focus on the science that Lady Black Doctor in number one did. You In the second one, you isolate Blade. Whistler's dead. You don't bring him back. You make Blade deal with that grief and that loss. You isolate him from his blood lady doctor friend, and then she reveals that she left her research with a company, right? And surprise, this company is run by Damaskinos. You might find that out just by the end of the movie. But he's been using it to try and eliminate the more gross parts of being a vampire, like he was trying anyway. And he
Ooh, ooh,
eliminated a
ooh,
bit.
ooh, ooh. So what you say?
Yeah,
Okay, and that leads to the Reapers.
that leads
Oh,
to the
okay.
Reapers, and then you keep the casting the same. Except for Whistler because he's dead now, and we recast him and then use him in a bunch of new flashbacks. I don't care. Just don't bring him back. Anyway, you keep the casting the same. Um, you make Scud less of a trash fire. I don't know why you would distrust Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel's characters, but work with Scud. I'm just saying. Yes, that's rough.
That's actually very fair. I didn't think about that because he just takes that deadbeat in, no questions
Yeah,
asked.
and then he gets stabbed in the back for it. I'm just you you hear what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying. Anyway, so you have him meet characters, including Scud, who is not Trashfire, and the vampire team, and Nisa, and all the other characters. And as he goes along, he realizes that to deal with his loss and his grief of not just Whistler, not just his lady friend, but his mother as well, and all that everything else, he has to learn to trust again, or learn to love again, or learn to have friends again, or whatever. And as he goes along, he isolates Damaskinos, kind of where they were in the end of Blade 2 anyway, where he now has all the allies and the friends, and Damaskinos is outnumbered and they're overrun.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then for this one, how would you lead that
Okay,
into
so
this
for
one?
this one, they talk about the cure. So we still use the Blood Lady Doctor's research. We extend that now a little bit further. For this one, I would kind of keep some of the ideas they had already. So you frame. Blade for the murder of a familiar. The humans come after him and they come searching for him, and they stumble upon vampires, or like a group of humans at least stumble upon vampires.
So let me just. Are you saying that the vampire conspiracy needs to be unraveled and like everyone
Yes,
gets
yes.
away? There's vampires.
And then
Okay.
there's kind of a race between two vaccines. One created by humans that will do what it did in the movie, it'll just explode all the vampires, and one made perhaps by Blade and his group of good guys, that instead of just explodes all the vampires, makes them mortal, like properly cures them actually, and symbolically, you could say, instead of eradicating vampirism, turning vampirism back into humanity, which is Blade's arc all along. Okay, understand.
That actually works very nice, especially considering in number two, he does kind of come to terms with the fact that not all vampires are maybe just these idle monsters. Some of them, they like Nisa
Yes.
brings that out in him. She's like, "No, I've made peace with what I am a long time ago. You haven't." That actually works a lot well. That first thing you said with the framing familiar, that's what I think they should have done with this movie. I think it would have been far more exciting if they went with he frames the familiar and then he has to deal with you being shunned by humans while protecting them all his life at this point.
Being
Yeah, but that wouldn't have. Do you think it would have sold though? Because we look at something like Logan today, and Logan worked because you have like 10 or more years of history with Wolverine just being Wolverine all over the show, and then they come out of the gate with this deep character dive into, what does this cost him and how he feels and how alone he is now. Do you think something so soon back then would have worked?
never take any of my ideas to make money with.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, but it would have aged better.
Especially for the market they were going. Remember now, it's a genre shift halfway through the trilogy. There's no way it's going to properly make sense. Going from the horror surreal from Blade One and using that same aesthetic right through the trilogy. Yes, this would have made my pitch for the story worked. But if you had to drop it down to PG-13, no, it wouldn't. It's you're
That's a very interesting one. I like that. A couple of things in this movie I did like. Ryan Reynolds, obviously, all of it. All the jokes work, I think. Even going back now, I still caught myself chuckling at some of it. It's very good. I like the fact that he speeches them when he gets there. It's like, how do you people fund this operation? You all look like children. This little joke sticker thing that you have, it's not the way I do things. I like that. I still like the outfits. I do. It's not a lot. You've seen one black trench coat. You've seen them all. But I still like the way, like, Wesley Snipes carries the character. I still like the fact that he's not as animalistic in this one as he is in the previous two. But I like the fact that he still catches things without looking at them. And he retains some of his favorite weapons. He still has the stakes. He has the boomerang blade, which is in itself ridiculous. I mean, how would you catch that thing without losing fingers? But okay. And he still has the garrote in his vest, which is all fun little callbacks. I think that's cool. But yeah, the ending of it all is just so. That's the thing that we said on top is they have a lot of plot lines in this, and they solve like the two major plot lines within the same 5 minutes. We have to kill Dracula, but we also have to kill all the vampires, and we achieve both of these goals immediately.
terrible. The more I think about this movie, the less I like it, which is sad. I'm just gonna edit it with just Ryan Reynolds. He gets an 8 out of 6 back for this movie from me.
Boy does look good. Gotta give it to him. He trained.
Yeah, no, he looks good. He carries this movie a lot. I must say, I do. I'm not angry for Wesley Snipes about anything really. He carries it as you said. He carries it well. It is an action movie. If you go in and you don't try and analyze the narrative themes of everything, then yes, you can have fun. If you want to watch a good movie, go watch Blade One. Though that's all I'm saying.
Yes, no, definitely it feels that way. Here's an interesting tidbit for you though. So there were there were spin-offs planned for this, so there was a cross between the Underworld movies and the Blade Trinity. So there was a planned crossover movie, but that got dumped based on how badly this did. And then Ryan Reynolds himself he was supposed to go off in a spin-off film on his own for the Night Stalkers. But Blade wasn't necessarily going to finish here, because in the extended cut of the DVD, there's deleted scenes for how this movie was supposed to end. So the original ending was Dracula doesn't change back into Blade in the autopsy room. It is Blade, and he wakes up and he kills all the doctors. And then King narrates that the virus or the cure that they had didn't stop his human half of his heart. So he just went comatose and then healed a little bit and then came back. But I think it's better they didn't go with that ending, because if the last thing you see of Blade is him mercilessly murdering doctors, I think that would just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Probably why they cut it. And then the other ending was you see the Night Stalkers, so Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds 6 months afterwards, hunting down a werewolf in a casino, which would have opened up the world to the Underworld spin-off, which I'm also glad they didn't go with. Because although this movie isn't the best, I do respect an ending.
Yeah.
I do like it when something ends.
No, definitely.
And this is also long before we had end credit scenes and hanging in the lips of everything.
It's definitely a lot different than current Marvel, and a simpler time. It's a simpler time that I yearn for.
No, definitely. It was simpler times. But let me ask you this. Do you think they can bring this version of Blade back in our modern MCU?
It,
Would you like to see something like that? Something like a Spider-Man No Way Home for Blade? Sub-question. What do you think a Blade story could be now in the MCU? Because it's obviously not going to be R-rated.
yeah,
They're sticking with
it's
this.
Lord Mickey, so it's definitely not going to be R-rated. It would even, if it's R-rated, it wouldn't have been as cool as R-rated in the 90s. Um,
Also true.
R-rated
Yeah,
in the
fair.
90s, something different, eh? And it's not that they showed us more, it creeped me out more, eh? But anyway, Blade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, I don't know, man. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. I'm not even. I'm still not sure where Moon Knight fits into everything, so I can't even tell you where what. Yes. What would you like
It
to
would be
see?
a little bit difficult. I'm not sure. I don't think that bringing back this Wesley Snipes and a cross multiverse thing would work necessarily. I think there's a bit too much of a disconnect between people that like those movies and people that like the MCU, because it's a completely different crowd. Especially considering I think anyone that likes this original Blade trilogy feels the same way as us. It's 1 and 2, and then we kind of endure 3. But I think if you pair him with some of the darker characters, and if you use Blade as a standalone character, meaning every now and again he wouldn't necessarily fit into the overall continuity of it all. He would just have like these standalone movies that are like act as more wacky and oddball adventures for the other characters. So I think like teaming up Blade and Black Panther, or Blade and Daredevil, or if they ever bring back Captain America, Blade and Captain America. But then those movies would serve as a off the beaten track adventure for those characters, and you just use Blade as a vehicle to do that. Because here's the thing with the silent protagonist: how many movies do you have, and then they're no longer a silent protagonist?
I hear you. Yeah, he's done all right so far. I'm just saying, like he doesn't speak much in the 3 movies we do get. They'll just try and edgelord each other, most of them. Like if you put Daredevil and Blade together, who's gonna get the last line? It's gonna be a classic Marvel scene where all the guys are trying to get the last line in the scene, and they're just trying to one up each other, and actually that's rough.
Yeah.
Imagining Blade like that. It's
Yeah, that's not gonna work so lucky. He can't be. He can be witty. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to say that you can't do a witty, quippy Blade, but I think that will be. It will have to be a depressing, like a depressing humor. It'll have to be. You'll still have to be sad because he is kind of the MCU's answer for Batman. I feel.
I was thinking about that right now, but I'm also thinking Batman doesn't. Oh wait, Batman does. Batman does fight Dracula. Is actually one of the top 5 Draculas. Is the Dracula that Batman fights. So you got me there, sir. Touche. This is Blade is as Marvel Batman.
Yeah, he could be, but I don't know. Oh, I guess we'll see. They're starting production this month, October, on the new Blade movie. So I guess only time will tell, and then we'll have it in our grubby little hands, and then we'll come back to this and compare. Final thoughts? What did you think overall? This movie, this trilogy. Would you go back to it? Is this something you would recommend?
As I said, it's an okay time, and. Watch Blade 1 instead. That's what I have to say. I give it a 1 out of 4 whistlers.
So let me count the whistlers. So that's OG Whistler, Lady Whistler, and his dead wife and child.
Yes,
Did I get you right
3
there?
dead whistlers, 1 alive whistler, 1 out of 4 whistlers.
Very nice. I also liked it. I always like going back to Blade 1 was nothing but a treat. I was reminded of why I liked that movie so much. I still like Blade 2. I like the things that they tried. I can conceive of its mistakes, and I will not defend this movie ever. But for the overall trilogy, not a bad time. Definitely something you're not gonna waste your time watching this, but it might not be like you definitely have to put your mind pre MCU in preparation for
Don't do a
this.
podcast analyzing it. It's right.
But that's us, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Come back next week. We'll have something brand spanking new for you. If you like anything you hear here, please do leave us a comment at the bottom. Talk to us. Let us know. What do you think? Do you think we're on the right track here? Do you like Merlin's idea for what would be a better Blade trilogy? We'd love to hear from you. And goodbye.